Hi, I'm Doug Thompson. Welcome to the Good News Spectacular. We have a special show for you today because there's a lot of high school seniors graduating across our state that'll be heading into college. And one of the things that happens is when you get into college, if you're strong in your faith, well, you may come under attack from peers, from professors, and we're going to have a program that concentrates on that a little bit today. We're going to visit with Howard Storm, who used to be an art professor at a college, and he's going to tell you how he in fact picked on him. Then we're going to visit with Tiffany Roney, who was a graduate in 2011 from Kansas State, and she's going to talk to you about how she dealt with that situation. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss it. Welcome to the Good News Spectacular. I'm your host, Doug Thompson. Visiting with me is Howard Storm. If you were watching the show last week, you know from my interview with Howard that Howard had an out-of-body experience, and unlike the first story we had about out-of-body experience, this one wasn't so much fun. This was the vision of an atheist who went and saw a small glimpse of hell, or at least the ushering into hell, and was called out to the Lord, and Jesus took him out of that setting, showed him what a glimpse of heaven, what heaven can look like, not necessarily heaven completely, but that interaction between Jesus and angels. And man, that was a wonderful story. And Howard's on the phone with me right now. Howard Storm was a college professor, art professor, and certainly very familiar with the academia world. And this show, as you may or may not know, is concentrating on high school seniors that are now going into college. What are they going to experience? What can they expect from some of the professors who will be there? How strong are they going to be in their faith to handle that when a professor makes fun of them, either openly or by smirks or other things? And that's what we're going to be concentrating on today. So Howard, thank you for joining me again for this show.
That's my pleasure to be with you.
And Howard, you were an art professor.
Yes.
And at a university, of course.
Yes.
And
for 20 years.
20 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. And matter of fact, you became chairman of the art department, didn't you?
Right. I served in that role for 7.5 years. Yeah.
And for a period of that time, at least, maybe all of that time, or the bulk of it anyway, you were an atheist as well.
Yeah. For 17 years, I was an atheist. 3 years as a believer.
Okay, and so a high school freshman, high school senior coming in now as a college freshman, and they're coming in and their faith a little bit shaky. What words of wisdom can you give to them? What was your view from your end of the desk looking out to the class, and share some of that experience with us?
The professors that they're going to meet are highly intelligent people who achieved expertise in their field of study. Now, in academia, that means something very specific and very tiny. But because of their expertise, they speak with authority about lots of things, including sometimes professors will digress from the class content or give the content of the class, like in a history class, their spin based on their faith or lack of faith. And a lot of academics, not all by any means, but a lot of them are not only unbelievers, but really have, for their own reasons, which are too complicated to go into what their reasons might be, but hate Christianity, despise the faith. And they can convey that in subtle ways and not unsubtle ways. And unfortunately, a lot of young people can be seduced away from hopefully the church upbringing that they had and the understanding of what life is about and who God is and what their relationship to God should be by these authority figures, because they're very naive and they naturally want to believe that what the professors are telling them is the truth because it's being professed as the truth.
Sure, and tremendous peer pressure upon the kids. If you were specifically challenged if a professor said, anybody here have the faith that they think they're a Christian? Many kids who maybe consider themselves as a Christian wouldn't even consider raising their hand in that setting and bringing the ire of the professor. Would I be right with that?
That's right. You know, why would one want to subject oneself to ridicule and the consequences of being considered, you know, an idiot by the professor and possibly by their peers? So, you know, it would be unusual for a student to stand up to a professor.
Oh, absolutely. And you can get more information on this subject along with the last show that we did by going to howardstorm.com. That will lead you where you need to go. Howard, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for last week's show. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to the Good News Spectacular. I'm Doug Thompson. I have brought in special guest and a friend of mine, Tiffany Roney. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here. You wouldn't know this, but at the earlier segment, I had a conversation with Howard Storm, and the whole premise of this show that we're shooting for the Good News Spectacular is we're concentrating on what kids coming out of high school seniors headed into college, and what they're going to encounter. And those that are coming in with their faith that's solid with the Lord, and those that are, of course, coming in with no faith, what they're going to see as they move forward. Now, Howard Storm, we used a segment with Howard for the near-death experiences. And we also talked to Howard in regards to him being a professor, and how did he handle situations with kids coming in with faith, because at the time he was an atheist. And you heard Howard, or you will hear Howard say that he picked on him. He picked on him. And so we wanted the parents to see on the Good News Spectacular what their kids are going to run into when they go into college. Now, I know you went straight from high school at Abilene High School, and you went straight to K-State. Was that in 2007?
Yeah.
And what did you major in?
I dual majored in journalism and public relations with a minor in creative writing.
Okay. And all 4 years at K-State?
Yes.
And so you graduated in 2007?
Yes.
And I know that you were strong.
Well, I graduated from high school in 2007, college 2011.
2011,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And so when you went into college, you were very strong in your faith. What did you encounter?
I think the biggest thing I encountered wasn't so much the professors. I mean, I did definitely encounter that. For me, I think it was like the social atmosphere and even just my expectation of that, and the idea that there seemed to be this expectation that if you're going to college and you're going to be a college student, that means you go out and party and get drunk or whatever. And some of the first people I happened to meet were of that kind of people and stuff, and so that was definitely like a temptation for me. But I found that at colleges like K-State or KU or bigger ones, yeah, you're going to find people that are like that and that see college as a time for that. But also, if you seek out people who are strong in their faith and who are going to strengthen you and support you and encourage you, like, you'll find that too. So yeah, as for classes, I sometimes did find like professors that were saying things that I really didn't agree with, and just, I guess, for my personality type or whatever, I'm just not very argumentative, and so for me, I didn't really feel necessarily called to like speak up and say anything different, because I felt like in that setting it wouldn't necessarily change anyone's mind, it just might make them angry. So, and I did do witnessing kind of like more outside of class, just through conversations and stuff, but in class, if I didn't agree with what the professor was saying, I usually just kind of just let it go and was like, okay, that's what they think, but that's not what I think, and
left it at that.
Yeah.
When you go in and did you go into the dorm setting initially?
I didn't. Well, I was in a sorority initially, and then after that, I got out of the sorority in like October, and then after that, I just lived in different apartments every year. So.
Okay. What happens to the kid that comes into the dorm setting, or maybe the sorority setting? And we're not talking just girls, but so I mean, you know,
Sure.
it can be different settings in that. But what happens to that student who comes in and is strong in the faith, and their roommates, or maybe those around in the 3 or 4 rooms around, are picking on them because of their faith? Hey, let's go out and get drunk. Let's go out and party. Oh, you don't do that. Well, we're sorry. And they're the outcast in it. How does a student handle that?
I think the biggest thing with that is if you are going to say you're a Christian, like make sure to just people like watch you and stuff, so just making sure to, I guess, really not be like hypocritical, because that's like the biggest thing. People will like be, like they say they're a Christian, but look what they're doing or whatever. And just really continuing to like love them and not like have resentment or anything like that, and continuing to seek out and spend time with Christian friends who are going to support you and stuff, and listening also to your own Christian music, because sometimes they'll play music that you don't agree with, but you know, you can have on your own iPod or whatever, like music that's going to lift you up.
Yeah. And what I've encouraged our Taylor's a senior, and so she'll be going into freshman year in college next year. What I've encouraged her is to, if you're going to talk the talk, then you walk the walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because other kids will respect you if you're living the way that they maybe want to live. And within all of us, we all have that the spirit within us, and you know when you're doing wrong. And you can, if you do wrong enough times, you can get yourself tilted off to where your right seems wrong, wrong seems right. And that's pretty easy to do. Now, we've encouraged Taylor that when she goes to wherever she's going to go to college, that one of the things she does is get involved in a campus ministry, and there's different names for it. Did you find campus ministries available at K-State when you went there?
I did. There are plenty, and I was really thankful for that. And I kind of shopped around to different ones, and once I picked one that I really felt fit my values and I felt like I could find friends there and stuff, I just really found a lot of value in being like all in, not just like kind of showing up whenever, but finding ways to serve, getting to know the people outside of it too, like during the week, and just being like very involved in that. And then that really became the community that supported me, and I supported them, and it's great.
Okay. And in turn, that circle of friends that you made there, did that become the social circle of friends as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of them also lived kind of near, we would always go to like a coffee shop that was in Aggieville like during the day and stuff, and some of them lived near there, and between classes I would go over and hang out. It's kind of a community house, and we would paint and listen to good Christian music and share what was going on in our day and pray for each other. We would share testimonies of how God was working in our day, like, oh my gosh, that person I was praying for that wasn't a believer, like we had this great conversation, we'd celebrate. So yeah.
And did you find, Tiffany, that there were kids who went in directly from high school, got into college, they ran amok, got a boyfriend, sleeping around and they hadn't been, started getting drunk and other problems with it, their grades started going this way because they didn't have the discipline? Did they then begin to start looking at you and saying, how do you do this thing? You know, how do you make this work? Because I need to do that. Did they come to you, and once they realized that you were strong in your faith?
Somewhat like on Facebook, I think people felt more comfortable to do that there than like in person or whatever. They wouldn't necessarily put it in those terms, but they would sometimes say, hey, I miss you, can we get together and talk and stuff? And I think a lot of that wasn't just like a personal, like I miss you, but also like spiritually, like you have something that I don't have anymore. So
yeah, we've got to take a break. See you after the break. Welcome back to the Good News Spectacular. I'm Doug Thompson with my special guest Tiffany Roney from Abilene. And Tiffany was a high school senior that went from Abilene High School 2007, went to K-State and graduated from K-State. And we are talking about what kids are going to encounter, high school students are going to encounter as they go from high school to college, and that transition period, because in my business as an attorney, I know lots of kids go in and they get into trouble. And some of the time, some of the reason they get into trouble is they go in, they don't have any self-discipline, and they think, well, everybody else is, so I can go get drunk, I can drive home, I get a DUI, I get an 18 but not 21, the alcohol violations, my grades begin to go this way because there isn't anybody barking at it. And then when you get down to towards the end of the semester and the grades come out, you don't have a whole lot of time to go back and fix it, do you?
No.
No, you've got to pretty much be on task when you get there.
Yeah, it's important to be disciplined, and also one of the nice things about spending time studying is then you're not really tempted to be doing something bad because you're studying. Yeah. But things just definitely work out better when you go to class and try to stay organized, have a planner, and you definitely do have to spend a lot more time on school than you do in high school. I mean, the classes are a lot more challenging and the stakes are kind of a little bit higher because you're going to be going into a job afterwards, you know, so you want to be successful. So it is important to prioritize your studies. Yeah,
I didn't have the nerve to miss any classes because I knew I wasn't that good of a student, so I didn't want to miss anything. So I always took good notes, and it worked out. So I wasn't doing crash courses at the end. Now, you mentioned something when you finish college and you get out into a job, get out into the world now that you're trained at. and you are a reporter at the Abilene Reflector. And I've seen your work, and it's really, really good. I appreciate the work. One of the things you run into because of the nature of the industry, Christians aren't particularly a favored group right now. You find that to be true in the media that you're in?
I think definitely overall, you know, you'll find just like on different more liberal like TV news programs and stuff, you're like, I think that's kind of a slant or whatever. I mean, here in Abilene it is pretty conservative and there are a lot of Christians, so I kind of am in a sense like protected from some of that like ridicule or whatever, but I mean, I do find in a lot of TV and a lot of news media and stuff just kind of like a slant I don't really agree with, but I don't know, I just kind of don't necessarily like fight it. I just continue to say and be like who I am, and a lot of like the feature stories I think about like Philippians 4 verse 8 where it says to think about and to focus on like what's good, what's pure, what's lovely, what's right, what's beautiful, and that's kind of what I try to focus on with my human interest stories, and a lot of times that does just lead straight into the Lord. So.
You know, and I appreciate that, and I think we see a lot of that. If you take a look at right now on television, of course, is Duck Dynasty, and Phil just had some controversy on it, but as you watch it, it seems to me that a good part of their viewing audience is watching that show because of the family values, the core values that they exhibit, and you can almost predict what their stance is on almost any topic because they follow the scripture. Do you see that? Do you watch the show and see some of that?
Yeah, I haven't watched that too much. We actually watched a clip in church, and I thought it was really funny, and I've enjoyed like hearing a lot about it and stuff. I mean, I do think that people who like watch TV and just people in general are a lot more hungry for family-friendly, like conservative and more Christian value stuff than what a lot of the industry puts out. And that's why you'll see a lot of times Christian movies, like when they'll be in the movie theater, like they'll totally sell out. People will be like, man, I didn't get a ticket. You know, the industry doesn't expect that as many people are going to love it as do, but people are hungry for that. And a lot of people, they don't want to be putting a lot of garbage in their minds, you know. They really do want something they can watch with their families and can feel good about.
As you go into the college setting and a student that comes in and tries to stay the course by getting into a ministry group, what can they anticipate for resistance against them other than, like you said, their peers, and once in a while you'll find a professor who point blank is hostile to them. As they move forward with their study of school, does that pressure get easier, or does it get to be more difficult as they get to meet people and have social friends who are doing things that they don't agree with, but they're friends of theirs?
I think for me, that's a good question. I guess it got easier in the sense of when they weren't like close friends or whatever, because I had my own close friends then. But it was still, I guess, probably just as hard when I would see friends that I kind of like had faith in or something, you know, and not that I still don't, but you know, see them make bad choices and stuff. And it was just being kind of like a pretty like compassionate person and get really close to people and stuff. It was hard for me not to feel like responsible for my friend's choices, and sometimes wouldn't be doing my own stuff because I'd be staying up late with her, like trying to counsel her and like guide her or whatever. And I eventually had to like learn that you can't, like you can be responsible to people in the sense of you're responsible to talk with them when you can and stuff, but you can't be responsible for them. Like people are going to make their own choices, and the best you can do is continue to do what you're doing and just love them where they're at. And if the Lord is continuing to draw them, they will come around.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets of any specific instances you can think of that there was somebody who you should have reached out to or defended in a particular setting, and you feel like you didn't, and you look back on it, you know, I didn't. And I guess I'll take my own example. When I went into college, and it was a long time ago, I went to Emporia State, and one of my first classes was on philosophy, and the professor was an atheist, and he didn't hide it. He wanted to know if there was any Christians in there. Well, I wasn't solid. I wasn't in anywhere probably at the time, so I didn't have to raise my hand because I didn't qualify. But there was one or two who did, and I can remember him picking on those people, and probably did so throughout the course of the semester. And I imagine it may have even reflected in their grades. But they raised their hands. And of course, you know, being the professor, just like Howard Storm said, he had the advantage. He knew what he wanted to ask. He had control of the setting. Yeah. And I wished I had been strong in my faith at the time, because then I could have done something to have helped those people out, but I didn't. You remember any situations like that? Or you just were able to avoid those?
Yeah, not particularly. I think the professors that I had, they weren't super like blatant, like, you're a Christian, you fail or something. it was kind of more just like their perspective, you could tell, or things that they would say where I'd be like, that does not sit right with me and stuff, but it wasn't super blatant like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Good. I hope you've enjoyed the Good News Spectacular. And if you're an incoming freshman headed off to college, pay attention. Come in, be solid, hook up with the ministry groups. You're going to be okay. Tiffany, thank you for being here with me.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the Good News Spectacular. I'm your host, Doug Thompson. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. We visited with Howard Storm, and Howard was a college professor in the art department, actually picked on students, and Howard was an atheist, and so he made fun of the kids and readily admits that fact. Howard was kind enough to do a segment for us on near-death experience, because that experience where he got a glimpse of hell certainly changed his perspective. Howard was kind enough to share that information. We also had Tiffany Roney. Tiffany Roney graduated from Abilene High School 2007 and graduated from Kansas State University in 2011. She experienced some of those pressures of a kid coming in with a strong faith in the Lord and then getting into a setting where there's kids and there's parties and there's activities, and she dealt with those situations, and I hope that she shared some information with you that you found useful if you're a incoming freshman into college, and we just thank her so much. She's now a reporter for the Abilene Reflector, so she deals with it in her workplace as well, because it's just a tough topic. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and stay tuned for further Good News Spectaculars. Thanks for watching.